In the UK, millions of people tune in to Good Morning Britain to watch our next guest deliver the news, but you're just as likely to find him in the headlines.
Piers Morgan is a man fed up with cancel culture, extremists and the woke brigade. Now he's put it all down in a book, and as you'd expect, he's pulling no punches. Uncompromising, fiery and polarising, Piers Morgan tells you exactly what he thinks. The no-nonsense British breakfast TV host is never far from the headlines. He began his career on Fleet Street, writing for tabloids, and at 29 he was appointed editor of the now defunct paper News of the World. Since 2015 he's fronted Good Morning Britain, where at some point he's upset, well, almost everybody. He reckons the world has gone nuts and says his new book, Wake Up, is a rallying cry to everyone who still believes in common sense.
And Piers Morgan joins us from London. Piers, good to see you again. Look, we'll get to the book in a tick, but tell us about the call you had with Donald Trump on the weekend, a 25-minute call. What did he say?
Well, first of all, can I just say, I always wonder what you guys did on Australian breakfast TV, and so far I've been watching koalas fighting kangaroos and one of your team guzzling a gargantuan bottle of vodka live on air. I want a piece of this action. I thought I was a bit crazy in the morning. You guys are wild.
It's all the Australian stereotypes. Well, hang on, before we get to Trump, Koshy can go back to that in a minute. You do the breakfast shift like us over there. So what are you still doing awake? What time is it over there?
I've actually got the week off just so I can address the Australian people with a clear head this time of night. But it's the Trump thing was fascinating because I've known him a long time. We've been friends for 15 years, and we had a pretty spectacular falling out back in April because I've been giving him an increasingly hard time about his handling of the pandemic, which I think has been woeful. And eventually he came out with this absurd claim that you should inject bleach to deal with coronavirus. And I wrote a very angry column for dailymail.com in which I said, shut the bleep up, Mr. President. Your bat bleep crazy ideas are going to get people killed. And he unfollowed me on Twitter, which was no small thing because he only follows about 50 people. And we haven't spoken since. And then on Saturday, I was just minding my own business at home, and my phone went, and it was the White House saying the president would like to speak to me. So you don't really say no, do you? I couldn't really say, not now, Donald. So I took the call. We had a 25-minute chat about life in the universe. Very cordial, I have to say. And, it was interesting. He definitely feels that despite all the polls, that just like last time in 2016, the polls are wrong, and he's heading for re-election.
And you know him quite well. Do you think he can win it?
The one thing I've learned about Donald Trump, and I said this to people throughout the 2016 campaign, never underestimate Donald Trump. He's a unique political animal. There's never been anything quite like him before. There probably won't be again. Many people may think that's a good idea. He polarizes like almost nobody in the history of global politics. And yet he has an instinctive gut feel for what a lot of Americans want from their lives and what they feel they're lacking and how he can give it to them. And he has a rock-solid base in Middle America. And the real question is going to be how much of that base will come out again, and how much can Joe Biden galvanize the liberal side, the Democrats in America, to come out in bigger numbers than we saw with Hillary Clinton. On the national polls, Biden's way ahead. On the crucial swing states, 5 or 6 of the ones that really matter, it's a bit closer, but Biden's still ahead.
Yeah, and he's such a great showman too. Anything can happen. Hey, let's get on to the book called Wake Up. In what way do you say the world has gone nuts?
Well, it was going nuts before the pandemic, and now, unfortunately, it's brought out the very worst again as the pandemic's gone on. What I mean by going nuts is that I identify really as a bit of a liberal. I'm sort of centrist, but a bit of a liberal. Certainly not right-wing at all. So I've written this as a kind of clarion call to my liberal friends who all seem to have gone completely nuts, the woke element, the ultra-liberals, that they're becoming exactly the same as the fascists that they profess to hate. They have a very clear, very narrow worldview about what should be acceptable, and they now want to have the right to tell the rest of us how to think, how to act, how to breathe, what jokes to find funny, what movies they can watch, what television is acceptable, what hairstyles they can have, what clothes to wear. And it's become a form of fascism. And they've deployed this cancel culture, where if people don't live up to their extremely lofty woke standards, then they have the right to cancel them, to get them shamed, vilified, thrown off their jobs, and have their lives trashed. And I just think that most people aren't like this. Most people, and certainly in Australia, I'm sure I'm preaching to a choir here, very like the British, you know, want to lead their lives how they see fit within the parameters of the law. So this book is a wake-up call to my liberal friends. Try being liberal. Try a bit of tolerance. Try a bit of listening to other people's views and not immediately wanting to cancel them if they don't agree with you. Try and tell people at university it's good to hear speakers that you don't agree with, maybe you even hate. That's how you learn. That's how you evolve. All this cancel culture nonsense and no platforming has got to stop.
Well, Piers, I get a lot of messages from people, Australians, who call themselves the silent majority, and I've got family in the country who come under that banner. There's still a lot of sensible thinking people out there. They just don't yell the loudest, do they?
No, and one of the things I say in the book is that 20% of people in most countries are on Twitter. And of those, 10% make 80% of the noise. They tweet 80% of the tweets. So it's actually, and they tend to skew very liberal, very woke. So you actually have a very relatively small number of people who are very active, very angry all the time about everything, offended by absolutely everything. But they create a much bigger noise, I think, than their numbers represent. And the real world out there is not really on Twitter all the time, doesn't understand what all this woke stuff is about, but is getting increasingly irritated and annoyed, particularly at a time of a global pandemic, that these people are out there cancelling everything that they otherwise like in life.
But do you get too angry yourself? Are you just as bad? Some of the looks that your co-host gives you on set are absolutely withering.
I think I speak for Susanna in saying that's okay.
Some of the ones you've been getting.
Yeah, exactly. It's a co-host prerogative.
We are both massively misunderstood human beings, and our female co-hosts just don't understand us.
Hey, Piers, you give Boris Johnson a hard time at the moment, and with good reason.
He deserves it.
Yes, and the British government has really not handled COVID well either. But the British government has boycotted your program, Good Morning Britain, for, I don't know, however many days. Now, we find political interviews don't really rate that well anyway, so it's probably a blessing. But you know, how did it get to that point where that whole Conservative government boycotted your show?
Well, we're on day 180 now, I think. Last time was in the middle of April. And it happened because they were sending a minister out every day, and we were asking them difficult questions like how many health and care workers have died during this crisis. And the care minister would have no idea. And I would get angry and passionate and, you know, really wanting to hold their feet to the fire and wonder why they didn't know basic information, like the people risking their lives to save others. How many of them are dying because they didn't have enough protective equipment? And why there weren't enough ventilators for people in the early stages of this crisis. Why, ever since then, almost every decision that our government has made has been completely wrong, whether it is letting 20 million people fly into the UK in 2 months, many from corona-ravaged countries, made absolutely no sense. Why we locked down 2 weeks later than everybody else, letting 250,000 people go to a horse racing festival, giving it to each other. Why did we do that? None of this made any sense. It still doesn't make any sense. And the idiots, frankly, in our British government cabinet who were responsible for those decisions are the same idiots sitting there now making just as bad decisions. And if they don't want to come on our programme and be accountable for those decisions, then shame on them. But in answer to your earlier point, our ratings have gone up steadily ever since the boycott started to record highs. So on one level, I don't want them back. On another level, to help save lives, I want them back to hold their feet to the fire.
Well, they're making our politicians look pretty good, actually. Piers Morgan, it's great to see you. Congratulations on the book as well.
Many thanks. Always good to talk to you.
All right, see you, Piers. And his book is called Wake Up, and it is out right now.